A mother doesn't even know if her son is still alive, and the very officials who swore an oath to defend the Constitution refused to ask the simple question that could ease her pain. Is he breathing? That chilling uncertainty sets the stage for a confrontation in Congress that exposes not just one family's heartbreak, but a dangerous reality for anyone who believes due process still shields us from unchecked government power. If one young man who followed every rule can vanish without a hearing, then the line protecting all of us is far thinner than we think.
Of service to this committee, please reach out to us. And again, thank you for the work that you and President Trump are doing.
Appreciate
I yield
that.
back.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields. I now, I think, recognize our last member making comments today. Mr. Garcia, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here, Madam Secretary. And you said that you're committed to complying with the Constitution, which we, of course, all appreciate and think is important. Now, we all know that the Fifth Amendment states, and I just want to be very clear, that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The Fifth Amendment. Just to be clear in a simple yes or no, this actually says person. Is that correct, Madam Secretary?
Correct.
Thank you. And you are aware that person has been defined by the Supreme Court repeatedly multiple times means citizens and non-citizens. Simple yes or no, is that correct?
Correct, I believe.
Thank you. And in April 7th ruling just recently, the Supreme Court has reaffirmed, and I'll quote, "It is well established that the Fifth Amendment entitles aliens to due process under the law in the context of removal proceedings." But of course, the Department reported 230 people to be imprisoned indefinitely in brutal prison. We've deported U.S. citizens, as noted today, children without proper protection. We've illegally arrested students, and we know that just one of these students was released just last week, and you were mandated to do so. Now, the Fifth Amendment is clear. Madam Secretary, you committed to uphold the Constitution, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And you now, of course, commit to following the Fifth Amendment, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, Madam Secretary, you are violating that amendment as we speak, and you are breaking your oath. You are deporting people, and the department is deporting people without due process. We cannot deport U.S. citizens. Without due process, there is nothing that Donald Trump could essentially be stopped in grabbing people off the street. That's happening today. Now, maybe someone in government might not like your tattoos. Maybe they don't like how somebody votes. Maybe they don't want to see how someone represents your constituents in Congress. But if you can't see a judge, no one can protect you. And I hope that you and I and everyone here can agree with that. And apparently, not even the Supreme Court actually matters when it comes to the case, of course, of Kilmar Garcia. But let's remember that we're not just deporting people. We're sending some of them to be locked up in one of the most dangerous prisons in the world. Now, Madam Secretary, you've heard this case today, but I have to speak about it one more time. I think it's really important. This is Andrew Romero. He had an appointment to come to this country to claim asylum. We gave him that appointment. The United States government gave him his asylum appointment. He comes for his appointment. He passes a credible fear interview. He's a gentle person as described by his family. He's openly gay. He was leaving his country for persecution of being gay. He did everything right, claimed asylum, that was legal. And then we sent him to a dangerous prison at the border with no due process. There are claims about his tattoos. He has his parents' names on his tattoos and 2 crowns that relate to a festival back in his hometown. We are paying to lock this young gentleman up forever. What I would ask is the ambassador in El Salvador, we have asked for proof of life of Andrew. He has had no access to lawyers or family since he has been taken over a month now. No one knows if he's even alive. His mother just wants to know if he is alive. So my ask to you, Madam Secretary, is the same that I asked the ambassador. Can we do a proof of life check on Andrew just to see if he is alive?
Congressman, we are utilizing the tools that Congress has given us to apply due process to individuals. We are doing that for every person, and we are making sure that we're following what you have given us as far as guidance and how things should be implemented.
Would you commit to just letting his mother know, as a mother to mother, if Andrew is alive? He was given an asylum appointment by the United States government. We gave him an appointment. We said, Andrew, come to the border at this time to claim asylum. He was taken to a foreign prison in El Salvador. His mother just wants to know if he is alive. Can we check and do a wellness check on him?
Our asylum applications are different than the granting of asylum, and I don't know the specifics of this individual case. This individual is in El Salvador, and the appeal would be best made to the president and to the government of El Salvador on this.
We've
This
made
is
that.
not under my jurisdiction, and I
Madam
don't
Secretary,
have...
you have said that CCOT in El Salvador is one of the tools in the toolbox that you have. You have said that and has been quoted as saying that. You and the president have the ability to check if Andrew is alive and if he's not being harmed. Would you commit at least into looking and asking El Salvador if he is alive?
This is a question that's best asked to the president and the government of El Salvador.
And I think you know very well that you could ask that question. What you are choosing to do, Madam Secretary, is disregard this young man's life, this young man's family, who was given an appointment by the United States. I think it is shameful that you won't even request to see if this young man is alive. His family has no idea, has no access to lawyers. I would hope that we would have the humanity to just check if this young man is okay. With that, I yield back. It's shameful.
Gentleman yields. I think we've covered everyone. Mr. Rankin.
The hearing began with a reminder that sounded so basic it almost felt unnecessary. The Fifth Amendment. It's the foundation of justice in America. The clause that declares no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Notice the word carefully. Person, not citizen, not voter, not taxpayer. That single word means everyone under U.S. jurisdiction, whether born here or arriving at the border, is guaranteed a fair hearing before their freedom can be taken away. Courts have reaffirmed this principle for decades, and yet here was a congressman forced to remind a cabinet secretary of it. Live on record. Congressman Garcia didn't waste words. He accused Secretary Kristi Noem of breaking her oath to uphold the Constitution. His charge wasn't abstract. It was direct, urgent, and human. He said that by deporting people without hearings, the government was trampling on due process and effectively shredding the Fifth Amendment in real time. The point was brutal in its simplicity. If the government can skip due process for some, then no one is safe. What's to stop an agency tomorrow from denying anyone, a voter, a journalist, a legislator, the right to see a judge? That is how democracies slide into authoritarian control, not with a sudden collapse, but through the steady erosion of protections we take for granted. But Garcia didn't stop at constitutional language. He put a face to the crisis, and it was impossible to ignore. That face belonged to Andre Romero, a young man who did everything the right way. He wasn't trying to slip across borders unnoticed. He wasn't breaking laws. He came to the United States with an appointment, one issued by the government itself. He showed up when he was told to. He sat through a credible fear interview, the rigorous process where U.S. officials determine whether an asylum claim is legitimate. And he passed. The system acknowledged he had a real reason to seek protection. By every measure, he followed the law. Yet instead of granting him safety, the government sent him to a nightmare. Andre was deported not to a neutral holding center, not to a safe environment, but to one of the most dangerous prisons in El Salvador. And why? Because of tattoos. Not gang markings. Not criminal symbols. Tattoos of his parents' names. Tattoos of two crowns that represented a festival from his hometown. Marks of family and culture were twisted into evidence of criminality. Imagine being judged, not for your actions, not for your record, but for the ink on your skin. Imagine your family name being turned against you as proof of guilt. That was enough to strip away his freedom, maybe even his life. The cruelty didn't stop at deportation. Since being locked away, Andre's family hasn't heard from him. For over a month, no phone calls, no letters, no visits. His mother has no proof that her son is still alive. No lawyer has been allowed access. No one outside the prison walls can confirm his condition. His mother's request is heartbreakingly simple: proof of life. Not freedom, not special treatment, just to know whether her child is breathing. That is all she wants. That is what Garcia begged the secretary to provide. But what came next shocked even seasoned observers of political hearings. Secretary Noem refused. She deflected responsibility, claiming the matter was outside her jurisdiction. She said the question should be asked of the president of El Salvador, not her office. She insisted her department was applying due process as Congress had designed it. But in the face of a plea for humanity, that answer rang hollow. Garcia pressed again. If the United States government gave this young man an asylum appointment, if the government led him to believe he had a fair chance, then surely it bore responsibility when that promise was broken. Couldn't she, at the very least, ask if he was alive? Noem would not commit. Again and again, she shifted blame. And again, Garcia reminded her, this isn't about politics. This isn't about policies. This is about a mother who doesn't know if her son is dead or alive. At one point, he cut through the evasions with words that will echo long after the hearing. What you are choosing to do, Madam Secretary, is disregard this young man's life. He called it shameful. And in that moment, the chamber grew heavier because everyone watching understood the stakes. This case isn't isolated. It's not a bureaucratic error tucked away in a folder. It's a warning flare. If someone like Andre Romero, who followed the rules, who passed the government's own test, who sought asylum legally, can vanish into a foreign prison with no due process, then due process itself is in danger. And once due process crumbles, it isn't just asylum seekers who are at risk. It's all of us. Without the guarantee of a day in court, any of us could find our rights stripped away with no recourse. Today it's asylum seekers. Tomorrow it could be journalists. The day after, it could be you. That's why this hearing matters. It isn't about partisan points or committee theatrics. It's about the integrity of the Constitution itself. Due process is the thin line that separates democracy from tyranny. It is the shield that protects individuals from the unchecked power of the state. Without it, laws become tools of control, not justice. Without it, the government decides who deserves freedom and who doesn't, without ever facing the scrutiny of a judge. That's the road to chaos, the road to fear, the road to authoritarianism. And let's be clear, Garcia's demand wasn't unreasonable. He wasn't asking for a massive policy overhaul on the spot. He wasn't even demanding Andre's release in that moment. He was asking for humanity, for a wellness check, for a simple acknowledgement that a young man's life matters enough to confirm he's still alive. When that modest request was denied, it revealed more than policy differences. It revealed priorities. It showed that for some in power, abstract defenses of procedure matter more than flesh and blood lives. The haunting part is how familiar this pattern feels. History shows us what happens when governments begin to chip away at due process. At first, it's applied to outsiders, to those without political voice, to those society finds easy to ignore. But once the principle is weakened, it never stays confined. The erosion spreads. Suddenly, the shield is full of cracks, and those cracks widen until no one is safe. That's why Garcia's words cut through. You are breaking your oath. It's not just an accusation. It's a reminder that every official who swears to uphold the Constitution carries the weight of those words. To ignore due process is to ignore the very promise that separates free nations from oppressive ones. And when leaders fail in that duty, it falls to the people to demand accountability. Behind every headline about deportation numbers or asylum backlogs are human beings like Andre Romero. Sons, daughters, mothers, fathers. People with names, families, histories, and futures. When policies reduce them to statistics, it becomes too easy to forget that real lives are at stake. Garcia refused to let that happen. By naming Andre, by telling his story, by pressing for proof of life, he forced the chamber and the country to confront the human cost of these decisions. This story should unsettle everyone. It should spark conversations at dinner tables, in classrooms, in workplaces. Because the question isn't just whether Andre Romero is alive, as urgent as that is. The question is whether the Constitution is alive, whether the Fifth Amendment still carries the weight it was meant to carry, whether our leaders believe in protecting rights for all people, not just for the convenient or the powerful. If a mother's plea for her son can be brushed aside, what does that say about the value we place on human dignity? If a government that prides itself on liberty can shrug off due process, what does that say about the strength of its democracy? And if those sworn to defend the Constitution won't stand for it, then who will? The answer, of course, is us, the people. We cannot afford to look away. So here's the challenge. Don't let Andre's story fade into silence. Don't let hearings like this pass unnoticed. Demand answers. Demand accountability. Share this story with someone who thinks due process only matters to people they'll never meet. Remind them that once the principle is broken, no one is safe. Justice isn't selective. It isn't negotiable. And it certainly isn't optional. It belongs to every person. That's what the Constitution says. That's what Garcia fought to remind us. And that's what we must never forget, that if you believe the Constitution should mean what it says, for all people, then this is the moment to act. Share this story, keep the conversation alive, and make sure it isn't buried under headlines that move too quickly. And if you want to stay informed, if you want to see more stories that hold leaders accountable, then subscribe, hit like, and join us here. Because justice only survives when people refuse to let it die.